Hello, I am Dr. Carlos K. Hill. I am a professor of Black Studies at the University of Oklahoma, Norman campus. I am a researcher and a scholar of lynching and racial violence. I have, over the last, I would say, 6 to 8 years, been focused on the history of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. I also had the great privilege to serve on the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission. All those things prepared me to really try to understand and center the victims, the survivors, and the descendants of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre on the 100th anniversary this past May and June 2021. What I learned from serving on the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre Centennial Commission is that 100 years after the deadliest attack on a Black community and perhaps an American community, what I learned from being on the 1921 Centennial Commission is that it's really important for us 100 years later to center victims, survivors, and descendants of the race massacre in the telling of what happened. I learned that from listening to survivors and descendants talk about the justice work, the ways in which the history of the massacre continues to show up today. I learned that in centering race massacre victims, survivors, and descendants, it leads to a new telling, a new way of understanding the history, but also it prompts us when we center victims, survivors, and descendants, it forces us to have to confront how the history shows up today. I mentioned earlier that the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, to me, is the deadliest attack on a Black community in American history. The massacre included nearly 300 estimated dead, many of them, most of them, Black people. The race massacre destroyed a 40-block area. So the Greenwood district of Tulsa was a 40-block area clustered with homes, with schools, with businesses, all laid waste to in less than 18 hours of a violent mob, a violent white mob coursing through the community, destroying at will homes, businesses, schools, even churches. Cemeteries were not even safe. And so in less than 18 hours, a white mob destroyed Greenwood. Even at that time, was referred to as Black Wall Street, not because it was a epicenter of Black banking, but it was a symbol. Greenwood was a symbol of Black economic success and what was possible for Black Americans, even in the era of segregation. The community was destroyed. Many hundreds of Black people were killed as a result of the violence. Black people who were survived were interned for a number of weeks before they were allowed to return to their homes or to search for loved ones. On top of being deprived of their civil liberties, race massacre survivors in the weeks and the months and the years following it fought for restitution for their losses, for the homes lost, for the businesses lost, for the trauma suffered. They fought for restitution for a number of years. And even 100 years later today, there's still been no restitution for victims, survivors, and or descendants of the deadliest attack on a Black community in American history. National Geographic in 2021, during the centennial, wrote an article. And in that article, they estimated that $600 million in wealth was liquidated as a result of the 1921 race massacre. And so that is the debt, I believe, right, that is owed to the community if true reconciliation and true repair is to occur. I firmly believe that Greenwood is a special place with a special history, and it continues to be a kind of Black Wall Street because it still is a symbol of what is possible. The great, and also not just what is possible, it also exemplifies the best of what is America, and it's certainly Black America. And so the 1921 race massacre, in fact, is, I would argue, the deadliest attack on a Black community, but it's also, right, a history of rebirth and renaissance. That same community, that same 40 blocks that was destroyed, emerged from the ashes, even days following the massacre. Survivors who were able to get free of the internment camps began to find things that they could preserve, and what they couldn't preserve, they got rid of and began to rebuild on the very site that their home or business had been destroyed. And so the level of grit, the level of resilience of survivors is why we have a Greenwood today, and why 20 years following the massacre, Greenwood was larger in terms of population. Greenwood, the Greenwood district, particularly Deep Greenwood, the business district, there were more businesses there. But more than that, the community in so many ways had rebounded, right? The institutions, the anchor institutions, the churches had come back, and Greenwood was alive. And so one of the main themes within survivors, sort of felt history and memory of the massacre is not what was lost, but what was rebuilt. And for survivors, even though they lived potentially in fear, right, of another attack on the community, that would be as devastating as the first, they believed that Greenwood was worth fighting for, that it was worth saving, because it was that symbol of what was possible for Black America. And that spirit and that inspiration is what has made me feel it's so necessary to continue to bear witness to this history and get others to care about it.